Hello and welcome to another Modeling on the Fly, where we continue to work on the AT-AT-like vehicle that we have been, we've been working on this for quite a while now. Now, earlier, just before we started recording, I changed a few things about the interface, mostly just to keep things fresh because I'm always staring at the same thing and I like a little switch of environment. So I made the material gray again, like it used to be a long time ago, and I made the viewport background black. No real reason other than I just thought it looked nicer. So let's see, I'm going to hide the image planes for now. I want to get rid of those. And what I would like to work on today, just to kind of switch things up a little bit, we kind of got this front area of the troop carrier looking pretty good, and we still got some stuff to do across the roof, but we'll get to that. I'd like to take a look at this area, this funny ring and support structure and all this other cool stuff that seems to be taking place around the neck of our vehicle, if you want to call it the neck. I think it's got some other sort of interesting name, but that's what we're going to call it anyway. So let's see, let's jump over to some sort of frontish kind of view, and I want to see this in wireframe, so we'll hit F3. Now here's the geometry that we're using for the neck. Currently, this is of course temp geometry. I don't really plan on, excuse me, on keeping this. So let's see, the first thing I'm going to do is create a simple tube. And we'll put it right about the center of this object. Of course, I'll center it up a little more thoroughly in just a few moments. And we'll give it a little bit of thickness, and that will do. Now let's play with our segments. We have 18 sides. I'm going to give this some height too, so we'll give it some random amount of height. Lots of sides. I want this to appear very smooth to most views, and I like nice even numbers for things like this. So we could probably go with 36, but I bet 42 would look a little nicer. So we'll go with that. Now let's take a look back over here in perspective, and I'm going to slide this forward. And wow, we should just leave it purple because that looks awesome. And I'm going to pull this just out in front of this great big plate that we've created. I'm also going to make use of our temporary geometry here. I'm going to pull this back into the surface of this plate. Actually, you know what? To do this, hang on, bear with me just a moment. Let's grab this. I'm going to shift drag it out real quick. And yeah, just make that into cylinder 24. We'll grab our little original piece and slide it way out here for just a minute. While I select this guy, let's go to compound objects. Let's do a pro boolean, start picking, click there. And that chops out that inside piece, which is kind of nice. So we'll right-click, let's convert this back over to an editable poly, and that makes me pretty happy. Now we can drag this guy back over here where he was, and a couple other things we could do, just to make sure that nobody accidentally sees the fact that this surface is completely wafer thin. We can grab these two pieces, and I didn't mean to shift select. I keep thinking I'm in Maya when I do that. So let's see. Let's frame up. We'll slide this guy forward for just a minute. I have been doing a lot of Maya work lately, especially with the ADP class, and don't get a chance to play with Max very often. So if I end up clicking the wrong thing, at least you'll know why. Now I'm undoing all of that pro boolean junk that I just did a second ago. So let me see how far back it's going to let me undo. Maybe not back far enough. Oh yeah, it looks like it did. And the reason I'm doing that is because I just didn't have enough edges to keep me happy here, so I'm going to take the little cylinder that we've got here for our temp geometry. I'm going to kick that up to something like 32, and we'll just slide that over. And I think that will work a little more nicely, though I do need to create a duplicate of it, because when I do the little pro boolean thing, I'm of course going to lose that piece of geometry. So let's do it again. Pro boolean, start picking, grab U, and see now that's nice and smooth, which makes me a lot happier. And before we get out of here, we can go ahead and convert that over to an editable poly, just like we did a second ago. Hit the 2 key to reach into our edges. Press the F4 key so we can see our wireframe. And let's see what happens if we grab all of these edges. Now, if I hit loop, what are we going to get? Absolutely nothing, because it basically doesn't like that to be a loop. We also have some funny vertices here, so maybe I should clean these up before I do anything too erratic. It should be pretty easy. Like one, we could grab Let's see, let's do a target weld, and it's really kind of difficult to tell which one of these is our keeper vertex. So we can grab this guy, and we'll just hit backspace. We can get rid of that guy, and just kind of plug my way around here. I'm just looking for extra vertices, and that looks like one. Let's make that go away. And we'll make that go away. Kablam. And that looks alright. We don't have to worry about that. That can probably go. And I think that's it as far as the critical ones. So now we'll get out target weld. And these edges that we see here, we can anchor those to their nearest point, or to some point that allows us to eventually cut in all the detail we need. Like this guy can probably come down here, and this guy, I would probably take him up here, take this guy up here, and I think that's pretty much everybody. So now we can scroll down, grab the cut tool, and this is, you could argue this is kind of an optional step, but I mean, I feel better when I do it. Could just leave that guy hanging. I think it'll be alright. I mostly just like to anchor these off, especially when you have a great big flat surface. And then at least anchor it to a smaller thin surface. Though if they are perfectly planar, it really shouldn't make much of a difference. Yeah, looks like we don't have enough room there, so rotate our camera up slightly, and there we go. And here we can start kind of changing tactics. We can come down here to this corner. This guy we can pull down to here. And this guy we can just pull straight down. And that takes care of that. So now we switch back over to edges. Let's grab this edge. And if I hit loop, now I get the actual loop, which is pretty amazing. And we'll just shift drag a copy of that out a little bit, and that should add some nice thickness. Now if we come back over here and we loop again, we should now be able to chamfer these guys and create a nice little beveled surface there. Okie dokie. And that's pretty special. Now, if you take a look, excuse me, if you take a look at some of the close-ups, this plate kind of comes down and does some interesting things down here at the bottom. We're going to deal with that a little bit later. Really, all I'm focusing on right now is this funny-looking geometry here around the neck, which is going to take probably a few different pieces all kind of stacked up on each other. But we created this tube a few minutes ago. Not tuba, this tube. I'm sorry, I still have this nasty habit of thinking jokes like that are funny. And we're going to take the height segments and collapse those down to 1. I don't think we need any more height segments. Let's try to get an idea of the general thickness. And you can see it's pretty thick, but I don't think it's as thick as we've got this thing. So we can just grab our height and pull that down a little bit. Now, also, some other things about the shape. We have this kind of intermittent raised edge that pops up in the middle of this thing, so that would probably be easier to create if we took our height segments and cranked them up to 3, because then we get this sort of edge in the middle. And, I think that center part is a little wider than the other two edges would need to be if we were going to extrude. So I'm going to switch over to edges. Let's see. Oh, it's a tube. We need to make this an editable poly now. So make that a poly. Hit 2 to jump over to edges. Grab U and U together. Let's loop them. And then I should be able to just grab the scale tool and scale them apart from one another. I may need to use center of selection to do that. Oh, I hit the mirror button. See, again, more of that nasty Maya habit, not remembering where the interface actually is. I've used Max once or twice. I do actually know kind of how it works. Okay, so now back over here to the side view, and we can see what we're doing over here. We could make the image planes come back to life real quick. Might help us. So grab you and turn those back on. We can't see them if we're in wireframe mode, so we need to shade things up and then toggle them back down. Yeah, it's not going to be too much of of a help. We'll just leave it just like it is. Now, we have this funny circular bit, and the cool thing is we have a lot of detail here to play with. So I'm going to start off by creating this funny circular bit. And all of these, if you look really closely on this model, all look like they're welded together, making a singular piece. You can see a little bit of room there. I'm going to model them as if they weren't, as if they were just separate parts kind of plugged into each other, and I don't think anybody's going to really be able to either tell the difference or would care very much. So let's jump out here to create, and let's go back to standard primitives. Let me grab a cylinder, and we'll just draw this guy out right about here. And I notice I'm going to fit him inside the ring, add a little bit of height. And then let's get out here to perspective, and wow, I love those height segments. We really don't need them to be that high. We can slide this guy out, we can shade everything back up, and that's a pretty good start. And the one thing I would do is probably grab these two objects together, and we could grab our align tool, and yeah, of course. So grab you, align to that guy, and pivot to pivot is fine, but I really would only want to do this in Z, so we're only vertically aligned. That makes me kind of happy. Now, a couple of quick extrusions, and I think we'll have this whole shape pretty much ironed out. So let's see here. Or we could just use some multiple objects, might be just as good. So let's convert this over to an editable poly. And make sure we have it selected. I'll hit 4 to go into faces, and I'll press F2 just because I like it when they highlight like that. It just makes me feel better. And let's do let's do an outline. I'm sorry, let's do an inset. That'll make me happy. So about to there. Click OK. Extrude, and we're just gonna pull that inward, not quite all the way to the back. Now we could grab another piece of geometry to make this little raised ridge you see here, but I think it'd be just as easy to make it out of extrusions. So let's do another inset, and somewhere right around here we can extrude back out. I think it was 1.2 that took us all the way out, but we don't really need to go all the way out. Just click OK, and then inset again, this time a much thinner inset. Extrude again. You notice I like doing these by numbers. I mean, you can do them intuitively by doing the whole click drag thing. I don't know, usually don't. So I think that works. Now let's press F6 to... There's F6. That's not F6 anymore. What is F6? Either way, let's get out of editable poly mode and get back to our regular object. And I'm going to create a new cylinder in pretty much the same location. And just put it right there in the center. And give it some arbitrary amount of height, don't really care how much. And then we're going to take those sides and kick those down to 6. And that makes our little hexagon that we can see inside here. And we can even do a little rotation to it to get it to line up appropriately. Which is what, 30 degrees? So 30.07 I think is going to be close enough to keep everybody happy. Okay, so now let's grab this and we'll slide it outwards. Oh, come on, you know you want to. There you go. Now you're amazing. Okay, and let's take our height and we'll pull that down because it doesn't need to be quite so tall. Maybe just a little bit taller than it is, but didn't need to be as tall as it was. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Now, the next thing I would do would be to grab him and align to this guy. Pivot to pivot is good. We'll do X, Y, and Z. Actually, we could probably get away with not doing position X. And that'll just keep everybody all nicely lined up. Okay, now, almost done. Let's grab the Create Cylinder button yet again. Now, if we really wanted to, we could just switch on auto grid, and we could drag one of these out like so. Again, give it some magically arbitrary amount of height, and kick this up until it's circular again. So 24 looks pretty good for the size I'm chasing, and then we could pull down the height. We can definitely pull down the radius, and what I'm doing basically is I'm creating this circular indentation that goes right here in the middle. So if you're curious. So pull down the radius, maybe somewhere right in here would be good. And I wouldn't mind aligning this, so align, you, and that's fine. Just click OK. And then we'll slide that into the other shape. Select this guy, and let's see, go to compound objects, grab a pro boolean, start picking, grab that guy, and it's amazing. So there we go. Now right click, go ahead and convert this guy back over to an editable poly so we can make little adjustments if we need to. We could take the time to anchor out all these edges. I don't think we've really got to do that, but it would be a good idea for us to track down any stray vertices because I want to bevel that and make it look a little nicer. So we'll just go around the edge looking for these things. Make a selection here and frame up on them. Ah! Okay, and that one can go, and that one can go, and that one can go. Wonder if we have any like really close-up ones that are being devious, but I guess we'll know here in a second. Let's hit 2, and that grabs everybody. Now, if it worked, we should just be able to chamfer this and get a nice result. And we're not getting a nice result, as fate would have it, so we'll cancel that. And let's go back to vertices, and let's just see if we have somebody strange right in here. Very careful zoom. Alright, so what I'm going to do, just to see if it solves the problem, is we're going to cut this to here. We'll cut this guy up to here. We'll cut this guy straight out. And I think this guy next. Hit 2, and we can take this edge and just remove it because it's useless to us. Useless! Alright. Blam. Sorry if, once again, things are getting a little silent. Normally, I'd be rocking out right now, but due to various forms of international copyright law, I am not. Let's see here now. Can we loop that real quick? Will that just work for us and be happy? Appears so. And we'll chamfer that, and it looks pretty clean. Well, mostly. I mean, it looked clean for just a second, didn't it? There he is, folks. And it looks like we could fix that with a quick target weld. Now, if we switch to edges and try to chamfer again, I think we'll finally be set to go. Okay. Now, let's see what happens. If we grab this, can I hit loop again? Well, no. No, you really can't. Okay, now I'm going to grab the corner edges out here. Okay. Now let's try chamfering these guys, and that's pretty good. And let's get out of editable poly mode. It was just the 6 key and not the F6 key. I don't know why I only just remembered that, but that's how it goes. And we'll scale this whole thing in just a little bit. Scale this up just a little bit. And that all looks pretty good. Now, back here on the image, we got some little cylindrical cap thingies that we could pop on there. I'll see if I can make those really quick. Let's just grab a cylinder. We're still on auto grid, so let's grab that. Add some height. Kick the sides up. Let's see if we can get away with like 16, which is not too many. Convert that over to an editable poly. Frame up on it. Let's hit 4 to grab the face here, and let me just see if I can do some of this. Well, see, I'm just not a fan of the whole intuitive thing. I much more prefer doing things like this by the numbers, just because of what I consider to be the lack of a smooth manipulator. But everybody's got their different preferred workflows, so I'm not knocking the way anybody works. Okay, that's probably good enough. Let's get out of there. Oops. And let's see, how did the smoothing groups on that look? A little bit faceted. Okay. Now let's select this guy. Let's go to the pick reference coordinate system. Let's use transform coordinate center. Grab the rotate tool and put that also on pick and use transform coordinate center. Hold down shift. We have angle snapping on, we need to. And if we rotate this around like so, and there we go. The only other thing I might do, and let's take a quick glance at the picture, and those things look a little bit big, but I don't think they're big enough to cause a mutiny or anything like that. So let's grab this guy, let's hit 2, and let's see, will it let me loop that? Yes. And will it let me loop this as well? Yes. And how about this guy? Oh yeah. And then finally this one as well. Everybody is all selected. Let's do a quick chamfer, and that's a little heavy, isn't it? And click OK. Alright, so I think that works there. So we can get out of editable poly mode here. Jump over to this guy. Let's hit F4 so we can see all of our beautiful edges. Now we've got this funny collection of raised areas. And it looks like there's like going to be 3. So 1, and then one that wraps around the bottom, and then this guy mirrored over on the other side. So just keep that in mind. Maybe hit 4 and go, let's hit Q. So there's 1. Yeah, it's probably going to work pretty well, and then we can still build that funny plate that builds off right there. Yeah, I think that works. And then we skip 1 and click 4 more. Yeah. We'll go by local normal. Pull down the height, something like so. And let's do a bevel, also by local normal. Okay, I think that takes care of that. We probably have the same thing up here, so let's take a look at that. We probably could have hit it all at the same time, but I don't think it's going to make that big of a deal. Try and extrude, and that should still be set. And we'll try a bevel, which should also be set. Okay. I think we're good here so far. The only other things I might want to do would be to grab, let's see here, we could get you. And you. Now let's see, can we loop those? And the answer is yes. And just to be kind of on the slightly, I don't know, meticulous safe side, I guess we could call that. We could put just a little tiny chamfer right there on those edges. Okay, so we've got that. I guess the next thing we could do would be to start creating the funny little pieces that sort of branch across the top and around. Now, if you take a look at close-ups of the neck, you're going to see a bunch of different ways that these are drawn because of all the different models of the thing. In this one, they look kind of like they are actually the same piece. If we go back to what we were looking at a minute ago, when you at least get down to the bottom, I think I just skipped past it without thinking about it. And that's close, but there's the piece I'm talking about. It looks like there's some sort of funny separation, like another band attached to it. I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference, but the way I would do it, the way I'd approach the piece anyway, would be to probably start out with another tube, similar to the one that we've created here, and then start grabbing things like the slice plane, or maybe just the cut tool to add some edges that we can use to make the diagonal parts to it. So let's take a look at doing that real quick. I'm going to jump over to the front view, and that could come in useful, just knowing that that's there. Let's go to the Create panel. Let me grab another tube, and we'll just drag this out so it's a little bit thicker than the existing tube. Not by much, but it's still there. And then we'll pull this inside just a little bit, add a little bit of thickness. I don't know how much, but it shouldn't matter much. Okay, I think this was the guy we were all zoomed in on. Great resolution on these photos, by the way. Okay, so you see that these two pieces, we could call them one piece, but we'll consider them two just for sake of ease. They sit above this ring that we just finished building, but are still kind of underneath the rim of the cylindrical extrusion that we've assembled here. So that's why, if we come over here and take a look in the perspective view, and let's see if I take that piece I just made, and let's go back to view, and I don't really care about that whole center thing. Let's just put it back on pivot. If we slide this guy forward, we see that I've set up the radius so it kind of sits right on top of the purple ring, but still underneath the lid of this guy. So it should generally be about the same thing. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to change some of the parameters. I'm going to increase the height of this guy a lot because I want him to be able to stretch out to wherever that diagonal spot ends. So let's see here. Let me hit F3, and I suppose we could apply our material to this. We can apply it to others as well, but this one in particular so that we can do this sort of transparent shading trick. I can pull down the height and say that's just about right. Now it looks like this piece is a little bit lower, which would make a lot of sense considering that we see, well, a couple of interesting things here. That this piece, as it goes up, actually has enough time to flatten out if viewed directly from the side. And if you don't know what I mean, let me see if I can find a good shot. It's just something I noticed while I was looking at all this. And I might be able to show it, and I might have a hard time about it. Let's see, how close can we get over here? That's not the best view for it. I'll probably just end up making it up. Oh, this might work. This might work. Yeah. So we're still viewing a little bit above, so it's probably not as different as I thought. I could just assume that it's not. So we have an angle that cuts up over here, and then sort of levels off and goes straight around, and then the same thing down below. So what we'll end up doing is we'll build one, and then we'll flip it over, and then do the other side. So, and we're not going to worry too much about what the image planes say, though we could kind of use them for a reference as to how far out the piece should go. Okay, so we've got that in place. Let's hit F3 here and put that away. I just don't want to see it. Don't want to be distracted by it anymore. We can shade up the view over here. And we can probably slide this guy back just a little bit more. Yeah, because it cuts into about halfway along that little cylindrical extrusion, which is good to know and keep track of. And what we're going to do is make an edge that cuts out to about here, and one that parallels it, cutting out to about here. So let's go ahead and do that. But first, I just want to make sure that we've got all the detail we need. What I would like to do, because I think it will make my job a little easier, would be to take my height segments and kick those down to 2. And that'll just give me one main edge in the center that I can use to determine what the overall thickness of the band is over here. And if that just lost you and you're like, huh, I don't know what you just said, let me give you for instance, let's see here. We're going to increase, or decrease, I suppose, our inner radius just a tad. Say to right about there. Okay, now that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and convert this over to an editable poly. I'll press 2 and grab this guy. Let's also grab this guy as well, just to be on the safe side. We'll loop the two of those together, and then we can slide this probably forward just a little bit so that we can determine what the thickness of this little band is going to be up here at the top and down at the bottom as well. So let's just say that that works right about there. All right, and that looks pretty good. So now let's jump into vertices, and let's get our mighty cut tool, and we can take this to task. Now, we are pretty well aligned, and I still don't have an edge cutting right down the center here because I used the wrong number of total edges on this thing. So let me do this. Let's back up a little bit until this is still a tube. Let me take the total number of sides and kick that up to 44, any number divisible by 4, so that we can have a vertical and a horizontal edge that runs right down the center. Now, and before I do anything else, let me go ahead and align this over to this guy. And it looks like we can do it in all but position X, and everything will be pretty much exactly what I want. Okay, so that's good. Now let's reconvert this over to an editable poly. And no funny rotations, that's all looking good. Now I got to redo that one thing. We'll just hit 2, grab this guy, loop, slide forward to define a thickness of about there. Now we'll come over here to the side view, and let's see, just check our picture again. Yeah, we could just say that they meet at a nice corner apex right there and just be happy. So let's grab the cut tool. And we can start a cut from right about here and run it, say, that might be a little, oh, that could work. Let's pull it down to the next one, though. I'll feel better. Now, how's that look? Yeah, that's pretty good. And then we can go from this vertex straight out to here, and that looks like they're paralleled pretty well. I think that's going to work anyway. In the end, it doesn't look like we're going to end up using this tube. I'll just cut everything else out and remove our thickness and then extrude it back in to regain our thickness. So let's do that real quick. Let's grab 4 to get faces. Let's select by angle 45 degrees and get out of the cut tool. And let's see here. So 4, get you. Let's hit F2 because I like to see all those faces. Let's chop this guy out. Let's chop this guy out. We can chop these guys out. Okay, now let's turn off select by angle. And now we'll start being a little more selective in our selections. Okay, and I think we can now also grab this edge and, was it control? Oh, was it remove? And that also takes care of the stray vertices. So we can just kill all those out, and now that should all work. The only difference is that there's the two parallel edges meet at a horizontal edge, where mine, they kind of don't. But currently I don't see that as being a big enough problem to worry about. I could probably fix that if I really, really wanted to. Let's just not worry about it so much right now. Let's grab all of our polygons, and let's just see about doing an extrusion by local normal. Actually, let's not do that. Let's cancel that real quick. Yeah, I think I have a different idea. Let's jump out to edges. Actually, will it let me? Probably might be good if I switched over to borders. Let me grab this border. Now let me hold down Control and switch over to edges. And we can Control click that edge. We can Control click these two edges as well. I think that works. Now this is purely hypothetical, but I think it'll work. If we go back to this guy as our reference coordinate system. No, wrong one. We're going to do another pick. Let's pick on this guy. And switch over to scale. Grab the tube once again. Now, if I hold down Shift and scale inward. Okay, yes, but on the wrong plane. Let's just pull them in like this. Yeah, that worked. Worked nicely. Now, things never quite work the way I want them to, but what happens if I hit bridge? Does that just connect those for me? Looks like it did, didn't it? Yeah. I think that worked. Now, to solve the little issue of this kind of meeting at a little bit of the wrong angle, we had a couple of different things we could do. We could, well, one easy one would just be to switch over here to polygons, turn off select by angle, just grab these faces here, and slide these back. Let's go back to the view reference coordinate system and back over to pivot or center selection, either one will do. And just pull this back until these are all parallel or close to it, and that should work. That should be a good basis, I think. Now, let's get out of editable poly mode. Let's grab the symmetry modifier. And let's see here, move. If we set that back over to, let's grab our mirror. Where is the mirror anyway? It looks like I lost an extra couple of faces that I should have kept in there when I was deleting stuff out. Which is okay. I mean, it's a little inconvenient. It would have been nice if they'd, been there the whole time, but they're not, so I just had to kind of cope. Let's take a look at coping with that. First, let's convert this all back over to an editable poly. Now let's grab our borders. Grab this a border and this a border, and let's just bridge those. Let's grab edges, and let's ring those. Let's connect those. Click OK, grab that new selection of edges and tug them up slightly, and then we've pretty much rounded that back out. I mean, it's probably not exactly accurate, but I'm sure it'll do the job. Now let's go to polygons. Grab all these guys. Ignore back facing because that's annoying. Okay, zero these out real quick. Just gonna shrink this in. And let's try that a second time. This time we'll push this out just a little bit. Now I'm sort of making this up right now, so in case you're curious. Let's do this real quick. Let's grab this little selection of faces, and we will make it planar. And they should have been really close, but or at least I think those were planar. These should be close, but we can just double check and make sure they're nice and planar. Yeah, just a little bit of a nudge there. Now let's grab all these guys here across the top. Actually, yeah, that'll be fine. And let's do another bevel. Okay, and we'll hit 6, get out of subobject mode, F4, see what that looks like. Okay, now let's grab the thing again. Let's put another symmetry modifier on it. Okay, and this time we're going to do it in, I guess, the local y-axis. Alright, I think that's looking pretty good. Let's convert that back over to an editable poly. Now, let's go to edges, press F4 so we can see again. Now what happens if I loop that? Do we get what we want? I mean, sort of. That's not terrible. We don't really need these guys. What happens if I loop that? We get all sorts of stuff we don't need. So, when in doubt, make your own selection. Now granted, we could probably delete out a lot of this stuff and do a new batch of symmetries, and it would be faster. In fact, now that we know this whole thing's going to work, let's just do that. I'm all about some cutting corners and being a little bit faster. So that can all die. That can all die. And makes me happy. Let's see, was there... That could prove a little problematic right here. It'd be nicer if that just kind of connected straight down. But, yeah, I'm not going to worry about it too much. If I can get the whole thing built and it looks okay, then I'll just go with it and not stress. I could slide it back so it plugs more into there. Anyway, if you don't know what I mean, you will here in just a minute. Let's go ahead and deselect this guy. Okay, so let's take a look at just chamfering these out. Not quite so much, just a little bit like so. And then we can switch over to vertices, key up our target weld, and just nail these corners down so they're not quite so awkward. All right. All right, now let's try something real quick. What happens if I just grab these polygons and we nuke them? Actually, wait a minute. Hang on. Hold tight, Zach. Don't jump the gun yet. Let's put on a symmetry modifier. There's a method to the madness. Symmetry, local Y, so flip that up and down. Go ahead and reconvert all this to an editable poly. Now hit 4. And delete these guys out. Actually, we didn't really need to symmetrize first. Let's leave the bottom guys in place. They'll be kind of a cue as to how far we're going to push this little effect that we're doing. Now, let's grab borders. This little border here. And I'm just going to shift drag that out. Let's hit Z and frame up on it. I need to grab the scale tool, set it to view, selection center, or pivot, whatever. And just scale that down until it's pretty much flat. Now I'm going to grab my move tool and we'll just position that so the edges right there line up nicely. Could even probably get away with snapping. So if well, let's just come over in here. And we can slide that back a little bit. There we go. I think that'll work. Now we switch back over to polygons. We grab all these guys yet again, nuke them, get out of subobject mode. Once again, we're going to drop on a symmetry modifier. Isn't it crazy? It's crazy. And I think that is working. We can test it here in just a second. Right-click the thing, reconvert it to an editable poly, hit 1 to grab a vertex, grab one vertex, and it looks like they're connected just fine. Excellent. Now, why'd I go through all that trouble? Well, it was really just so I could do this. We can come over here, grab that new edge, and we can chamfer it and get a nice little seam right there. That's really the whole reason. Okay, so now we can get out of there, put on yet another symmetry. This one probably our final, and then there you go. We got the whole thing. So we can grab this guy, just slide it back here into place just for the time being, and that looks pretty good. So let's do a couple of things real quick. Let's grab this guy, and that should already be an editable poly, so we can attach. Let's attach all these little things. We could even attach that guy and just call these all the same piece. We can hit M and apply our material. We can select this guy and apply it here as well. Now let's select this guy by himself. It's an editable poly, that's all good. Let's do a mirror. I love modal windows. Alright, let's see here. Let's grab center here. So the tube, and then use transform coordinate center. And now we should be able to mirror that guy and make sure that we get a copy. And that's good. So now we got that on both sides. Now let's see, can we get... Let's grab the cylinder. Other cylinder, so really let's just do pick again and grab that and then use center of selection, which is not quite what I had in mind, but it's a start, so we'll just go with it. Now can we grab all of this as well as this guy, thank you, and this guy, and we'll mirror all of that. I think that's what I want. And click OK, and then take all this new stuff and just slide it forward. That may not be exactly what's there. Yeah, we got to change this. We can just lop off the top section, but I think the bottom section is at least a good start, if nothing else. So let's do that real quick. We'll come over here to the side view. That's a little interesting. So this whole thing is what, rotated just slightly? Or when it's symmetrized, it got a little weird. Oh wait, this is a user view. Oh, you gotta love that. I love user views, really. I really wish that the application was nothing but user views all the time. Okay, let's grab this guy, and let's convert that over to just a plain Jane editable poly. Let's hit 4, grab all these, delete them, get out of editable poly mode, get the move tool out, and just slide that forward so we don't have to worry about the fact that it has some exposed polygons, or exposed holes anyway. And there we go. Let's press F4. And that's coming along nicely. So we've run way over, so that's going to wrap up this video. Got some good progress done. I'd like to thank all of our member sponsors, and you should like to thank them too, because they are the ones that make community videos like this possible. So when you see one, be sure to send them your gratitude. And if you'd like to become a member sponsor, we have just started a program by which most of our actual for sale DVDs have just become streamable from our website to any member sponsor. This includes Maya Fundamentals. This includes Max Fundamentals. Max Fundamentals. This is a Max video, so you can watch all of Max Fundamentals whenever you want for $35 a month to become a member sponsor. And more details for that are available on our front page, currently in a forum post. And we're going to be making a big announcement about it later. But there's also Maya Advanced Modeling, if you really want to push the modeling thing. We've got our Houdini TD Volumes 1 and 2 available. We've just added C++ 4, 5, and 6, so now the entire C++ library is streamable to member sponsors. And we've also just recently added Maya Advanced Digital Production as well, which has many, many hours of content covering the full range of topics as we produce our own animated shorts. So lots of things for member sponsors. It's a really good time to be one. I'd like to thank all of you for watching, and I will catch you on the next video. You guys take it easy.